Okay, great. Looks like we're live. We are live on YouTube and Facebook now. Welcome back to our Quick Start live streams. This is T-minus 1 day, less than 1 day, and counting until we start the boot camp. So this is go time, guys. We are about to jump in. It's unbelievable what's about to happen. So you're about to embark on about 27 days, 4 times 7, 20, 28 days. Officially rounded up to 30 days of getting your coaching business started. And we have been busy with these live streams throughout orientation week. By now, by the way, you should have hooked up with your coaches, your masterminds. I think one of our masterminds already had their preliminary call or the preliminary meeting, so you guys should have already set your name and your rules and your ongoing meetings. And you should have everything in your calendar ready to roll. And we have been cranking out these distinctions for you to just get under your belt before you get started. Some of these actually are discussed a little bit during preparation week, which is starting tomorrow. Preparation week is really the content of week one, at least for Quick Start Coaching Code. But don't forget, that doesn't mean that you're just getting ready to get ready during that time, okay? Tomorrow, you have a chance to really play full out in the boot camp, not just by showing up and being on the coaching sessions and following through on some assignments, but by actually getting in the game to get your business started. Getting in the game to get your clients, getting in the game to start your sessions, to really get rolling with that. That's your opportunity starting tomorrow, right? And you don't have to do that tomorrow. Officially, the assignments don't tell you you got to do that until like week 3. So you can just follow the assignments and go and get that rolling in week 3. Your coaching business is going to get started if all you do is follow the assignments. But I would invite you to, or encourage you to take it to the next level and say, look, in this, like just be chomping at the bit to take action and take on that next level by saying, hey, as soon as I can start, as soon as the boot camp is there to support me, and if things are actually underway, and I'm being measured, I'm actually reporting in what I've done, like I want something to report. I want to be the best student that Jeff has ever had. I want to, I want to get some scores up in the first play of the game. Like, wouldn't that be awesome? Like, I mean, if you're playing the Super Bowl and you've got the opposing team, you're dealing with that opposing team, and then the first thing you do after kickoff is run 90 yards and make a touchdown, right? It's like, you're there to win it then, right? So that's the way to play, and you don't have to play that way, right? I'm just inviting you to take that on. Now, that said, if you got those things in place for orientation week that we've been working on during orientation week, you should have all your partners for yourself now. Jan Marie should have emailed you by now, or the course supervisor would have given you your full roster of coaches that you're working with, so you should be ready to rock and roll. And also, if you haven't seen all these live streams, check them out. I've got them on a playlist on YouTube. I'm going to put a special playlist together just for the orientation week Quick Start Bootcamp live streams, so that you can catch up on all the other distinctions that we've covered, those little keys that you put in the lock to get through those doors that seem to be barriers between you and getting started. Doer versus thinker, and overused versus underused coach, and comfort zones, and I don't know, I'm sure there's more than that, but those are just a couple that we've covered in this series so far. And we're not going to stop here. Just because this is orientation week, we've wanted to make sure we do a bunch of these to get you rolling, so you're kind of prepared mentally for what you're about to experience. But we're going to be continuing with live streams throughout the boot camp, throughout the entire 30 days, so to speak, to give you ongoing distinctions. I'll also be covering other kind of spur of the moment issues and distinctions and discussions that are coming up from you and your questions and your challenges during coaching sessions. So we'll bring those into clearer focus throughout our conversations. Now, with that said, continuing the tradition that we've already started in our 5th and final live stream before the boot camp begins, we're going to talk about predicting success. This is what everybody wants to do. This is one of the reasons why we'll take a boot camp in the first place and get all this support, because we want predictability. We want certainty. We want control over our destiny. We want to know we can take control of our business, our life, how many clients we're going to get, our income, the impact that we're going to have on the world. We want to know that this is predictable, right? We want to predict success, not just hope for it or gamble on it or wish for it or something like that. Who wants that when you can predict it? Right? So we're actually going to get into what does it look like to predict success. And obviously there's a lot of ways to handle that. We've talked about some of them already in these other distinctions. But the distinction we're going to cover today, this critical key to the lock of success, so to speak, the lock on the door of success in this particular area in your coaching business, is this thing that I like to call the self-fulfilling prophecy. The self-fulfilling prophecy. So we have a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you haven't noticed already, in our lives, in our relationships, in our health, our physical body, in every area of our life, and in your getting this coaching business started, you have a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, that doesn't mean that we're talking about your desires or your hopes. That doesn't mean we're talking about what you wish for in your business, okay? Desires and aspirations and wishes, that's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. Those are fantasies, right? Those are ideas. Those are ideals. They're things that we want, but we don't get everything we want in life. You know, a lot of people want stuff they never get. I mean, you and I have things that we've wanted in our life that we still want in our life and we still don't have, right? So wanting doesn't denote having. Wanting is not your self-fulfilling prophecy. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay, the reason why we're talking right now, the reason why you're listening to me is because you want something. You know, you wouldn't be in this conversation you didn't want something. Now that's great. You know, some people don't even want anything, right? They already turned all that part of themselves off and they've given up completely, right? That's not you, or we wouldn't be in this conversation. But there's another level around this, which I call your self-fulfilling prophecy. Your self-fulfilling prophecy is very predictive of your success. Let me give an example or two. So when I first started my music career, way back when I was still a student in college, I was in music school, and I was at the absolute bottom of the barrel in musicians at school, right? I mean, I was pretty lazy in high school and I didn't do very well, but I figured this should be my career, and I had aspirations, right? I had desires to do that. But I realized very quickly that just desiring being good at this and desiring to have this be my kind of gig in life, in my professional pursuit, was not all that it took. A lot of, you know, was around a bunch of students that wanted the same thing, that wanted to do music as a career, right? And they were doing a lot better than me, frankly, at the time. So I had to really change things, and I realized it was a rude awakening going to school and realizing I was at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom. The first semester I was like at the bottom of the pecking order, and the second semester I went down. I actually, like, more students showed up and they kind of kicked me down to like different instruments that I didn't even want to play. And so I thought, you know, I need to decide how things are going to go for myself. I want to predict success. So I said, you know what? I am still willing to be the best that I can be. I'm still willing to make this career. I'm still committed to that. So I'm going to create a prophecy for myself. I'm going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm going to move up one rung on the ladder every year. I'm going to give myself plenty of time, right? Because it takes time to get better. And I was in rank number 3. There was these 3 bands, right? Now, band number 1 was the one that everybody listened to, that everybody wanted to be a part of. Band number 2 was like, okay. Band number 3, these were like the freshmen, the people that were like doing this as like a second and third major or a minor, let's say, you know, just dabbling in it for fun. And I was in that band, right? I was not very good, obviously. There was a variety of skills I just didn't have at the time, right? So I said, you know, I'm going to move up a band a year. That's all I'm going to do, a band a year. I know those kids in the second band, like, they're pretty good, you know, but I can see they're like, it's within my reach that I could be that good. Like, band number 1, I couldn't imagine playing the way they did, right? It was something that I could not fathom sounding that way at the time. And then those were the idols, you know, and they were elder statesmen at school at the time as well, right? So I said, I'm not even going to set my sights on that. Someday I'll be there, but I just want to move up a band in a year. And I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and went to my lessons and where all the other kids were going out to bars and fooling around and doing what freshmen and sophomores do in college when they're free from their parents. I was in the practice room. I was trying to figure out how to get this shit done. And the summer came, we're off, school's out, and all summer I'm just grinding away, in my room, practicing again and again and again, playing along with recordings, doing all the sight reading with my with my tutors because I was a horrible reader at the time, and they were just trying to they were like, I'll work with you and I'll make you better, but here I gotta teach you how to do this. And I spent hours and hours and hours working with them. It's all kind of coming back to me now as I recollect. So and then second year in school, I show up to auditions, and wham, I got into the second band. And so I said, wow, this is working. I actually moved in a direction I want to move in. And I moved to the more advanced teachers that I got to work with. And then I continued the process. I said, I want more. I'm hungry and I want to make this happen. And I kept working and working and grinding and grinding. And then third year in school, I showed up and I actually got into the first band, but not just first band. They actually gave me the jazz tenor chair. And anybody knows about saxophone hierarchy in any band, any college, the jazz tenor chair is kind of like first chair, tenor sax. You get all the solos, you get all the attention, you are like the star in, the sax section above everyone else. And there's some other, great ways to feature players, like the second alto a lot of times got a lot of play as well, and even the second tenor, but first tenor got everything, right? And all of a sudden, not only did I get to play all the great stuff, but I got all the solos and I just got to do all this amazing things. And then the next year I went off to New York City and I started playing professionally in New York for several years to come before I made some changes in my life and I started my coaching career. So all that to say that with, everybody in that school had the chance to do that. I wasn't nothing special. I really am not that talented when it comes to that area. But I set myself up for success by creating a realistic, self-fulfilling prophecy for myself that I could play into, that I could live into. It's together, and I made something happen there. And in the boot camp, you're going to have an opportunity to do that too, in different ways, in your own way. But you've got to set it up for yourself. To predict your success, you've got to create your own self-fulfilling prophecy. And you can do this in an effective way that's really going to set you up to predict your success. You can also do this in a way that's less effective. You can also do this in a way that's very effective at predicting failure too. There's certain self-fulfilling prophecies that set us up. They set us up for failure. It's pretty much guaranteed, right? So I'm going to share some of those with you right now. But first, let me give you the concept here and what I'm talking about when we're talking about self-fulfilling prophecies. So there's two forms that self-fulfilling prophecies come in. But think about it this way. We all have this story that we tell ourselves in our head about every aspect of us and our lives and our history and our future, what's going to happen, what already happened, who we are, who we're not, who other people are. Everybody's got a story, right? These are if you want to know what your stories are, just look at all the people that you talk to more than just for a couple minutes a day, the people that you really have longer conversations with, and all the stuff that you tell them, those are your stories. That's all story. 99% of it, okay? Very few facts, very few absolutes, things that you could prove in a court of law. 99.9% of it is story, okay? So, the stories that you tell about your future, those start to create self-fulfilling prophecies. The stories that you tell about your future. Stories about your past, they can have an impact, there's no doubt, because they affect how you might tell a story in your future, for sure. But the stories we tell about our future, those are the self-fulfilling prophecies. So there's two stories that we tell about our future that I want to get into and give you some examples of what to do, what not to do, and also some strategies here as well. One category would be, this one's very simple, it's expectations. Because whatever we expect in life, or whatever you expect in your coaching business as you start it up, you're going to produce results that are attracted from those expectations. Now, it doesn't mean you get what you expect. You can't or won't always get what you expect. Maybe your expectations are out of this world. Maybe they're way beyond what's possible, right? Maybe your expectations aren't realistic, right? Maybe they're even too low. I don't know. But you don't always get what you expect, but you do get the results that are reciprocated from your expectations. Expectations create kind of a mindset in us, an attitude, a way of operating, and then that operation, that operating way, that way that we act, right, the way that we behave, that's going to create our success or failure. So expectations set us up in a self-fulfilling prophecy to some extent. Just expectations alone, very simple stuff. But the other side of your self-fulfilling prophecy, these would be your beliefs. Whatever stories you tell, they're supported by beliefs. They're mitigated by beliefs, okay? So we have certain beliefs about the future, about our coaching business, that will predict success or failure, depending on what they are, right? And by the way, your expectations may be right. Your beliefs may be right. But if they set you up for failure, who cares? Who cares? Do you want to be right or do you want to succeed? Do you want to be accurate or do you want to be effective? Now, I'm not saying, hey, look, I'll take accurate and correct any day of the week if with all other things being equal, but if that is actually going to hurt my results, I got to be careful about that. I got to watch how I focus on things that may be accurate but also perpetuate failure or create a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. So you could say, hey, getting a new paying coaching client is hard, and you could be right? Maybe it's hard for you, right? But does that, focusing on that, whether or not it's true, right? Just focusing on that perpetuate success? Does focusing on that create a positive self-fulfilling prophecy for you? Maybe it does, but for a lot of people it won't. A lot of people, that's not a really great thing, even though it's accurate. So what can you focus on around that might be still accurate, so we don't lie to ourselves, but it's also going to create a positive, success-filled, self-fulfilling prophecy? Well, hey, I need to really work if I'm going to get my next paying client. Great. It's much better than just saying it's hard, right? So sometimes we just got to go deeper with those kind of quote-unquote accurate beliefs to get to the point where they support us, but we can still also appreciate and acknowledge the truth, right? The problem is a lot of times people justify that something is true and accurate to kind of just have garbage come through them, like have horrible self-fulfilling prophecies come through them, have garbage beliefs come through them. Well, it's true, so I can say that you're a jerk, you know? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, but you know, there's also really great things that we could say about each other. Or our business or what we're going to do in this as well. Like, why would you focus on something that's just going to totally trash your motivation or your effectiveness or your willingness to get up out of bed in the morning and make a couple phone calls and do your business, right? That's going to be crushing for you. And you know what? The media and advertisers and businesses that profit off of negative mindsets, they're there to pick up the pieces, right? It's like, hey, you don't want to believe positive things. You don't want to deepen your belief to a level of wisdom where you can create and predict success by really working hard and making something happen. Just watch Netflix. There's a lot of really great things. You could just imagine that you're those protagonists and just fall into a fantasy land there. It feels pretty good. It doesn't take any courage on your part. Doesn't take any wisdom on your part. Doesn't take any skill on your part. But you know, you can still enjoy it. You know, there's all sorts of games that we can play on our phones nowadays that, you know, kind of make us feel like we had a little victory, right? Doesn't take anything on our part. Sometimes maybe that's even a little bit of work to get good at one of those. But it's usually probably not our destiny in life. It's usually probably not something we really are after. But it just is a low energy thing. And for a couple bucks or a couple hours of our time that we gave to some corporation that they'll profit, we get to watch other people fulfill their dreams. We could imagine us being them, but actually not have anything for ourselves, right? So it takes some strength. It really takes some honesty, but also some strategizing here with your beliefs to set yourself up so your psychology will allow you to move forward in a powerful way and not just distract with the kind of stuff that our clients probably need us to help break addictions with. as well, okay? Because I mean, I'm assuming this is really what you want to do, and that's why we're having the conversation. So beliefs set the stage for success, beliefs set the stage for failure, and beliefs will create a self-fulfilling prophecy if they have any impact on the future, whether they're about you or the future or the landscape that you're weaving through or that you're navigating through as well. Expectations and beliefs. I want to come back to expectations just for a second. You can think that you have positive expectations, and it can actually lead to quitting. So don't just think because you expect everything's going to be great and easy and wonderful and you're going to get tons of money and clients that sets you up for success. That may actually set you up for failure. And you actually may look at certain negative expectations. You may actually think that you shouldn't expect that you're going to have to work hard, or that it's going to be tough getting that first client or something like that, and think that you don't want to focus on that. And yet that could actually, depending on the way that you look at those things and the way you approach challenges and certain ups and downs in your expectations, that could actually set you up for success. So just be wary of whatever expectations you have and how that's going to set you up for success and failure, or how that might set you up for success or failure, so that you can mitigate those, so that you can revise those expectations. And we're going to get into details around that as well. But hopefully that makes sense. Is this connecting for you as far as like why expectations and beliefs can actually create a self-fulfilling prophecy, that even though you could have had success, you fail instead, or that you could have failed, you succeed instead, because you could go either way at this point. The beginning is a very delicate time. Like I mean, nobody's going to really be able to predict what's going to happen here, right? Only you get to predict. But there's strategy around predicting. And it may not be success like tomorrow. It might take a month. That's why we do this over a period of 30 days and give you all this support. That's the point here. So let's go ahead and continue. So here's some expectations and some beliefs to avoid. Start with what to avoid. First one, and this one's really simple, but it is, this one shows up quite a bit. You'd be surprised. I see this with a bunch of students all the time. This doesn't really matter. I don't really care, right? You signed up for this program. You paid hundreds or thousands of dollars. You've already spent tons of hours of your time, and it doesn't matter, and you don't care. First of all, it's probably not accurate, okay? And by the way, that doesn't mean that there isn't a part of you that's apathetic. You might be being apathetic about it, so that's accurate, right? But does that mean you really don't care? My guess is, if we're having this conversation, you truly do care. You care a lot more than you might even want to admit, if that's the conversation that you're having in your mind. Okay, so if that comes up, it's not really an expectation, but a lot of times when we get an initial disappointment, like, hey, I really wanted to go on a date with that individual, that woman or man, and then they said no, but I don't care. I'm too good for them, right? It's like, yeah, right. That is a belief that protects you from a sense of disappointment, probably, or a sense that you didn't get what you want, a deprivation, right? A sense of loss. It's like, you know what? You can't use that to get you out of that sense of loss. Why? Because as soon as you start believing that, it's going to be your defense mechanism. And then, since you're defending yourself from that sense of loss or that sense of failure, you also have to now convince yourself and everyone else that you really don't care, and that it really doesn't matter, and it makes no difference, and all that. How are you going to do that? Well, you just quit. Just blow everything off, And all of a sudden, that same thing that actually got you out of feeling bad for a little while now has you in a crushing long-term, like that's the end of your business. Okay, so don't let yourself go into fake apathy, or not even fake apathy. Don't let yourself go into apathy for very long. You got to nip that in the bud and handle that issue, handle that limiting belief, if that's there for you and if the shoe fits. This one is more of an expectation. This will be easy. All right. Or more specifically, by the way, expecting it's going to be easy is not necessarily the worst expectation to have. I mean, expecting that actually may have you operate in an easygoing fashion that actually could be very attractive to your clients. Fine. That's great. If that works, and if it works for you, then I know a lot of easygoing coaches that do tremendously in attracting clients, depending on their charisma level and the work ethic that they also have naturally. Some people say, hey, wow, this business is easy, but I also know they're working 10 hours a day. And so what they call easy, you may think of as hard, right? Everybody's got a different calibration for what easy actually means, okay? So just be careful of thinking other people think this is easy, so that's going to work for me. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, depending on how you calibrate. But here's a guaranteed expectation that'll hurt you. This has to be easy. Like this business, it better be easy. Now, I think it's going to be easy, but if it's not easy, I'm out. Like I'm not, if it gets hard, I'm done, right? Like I only do things that are easy, or whatever your rule is that you might have made up around an expectation. So it's not even an expectation, it's more of a rule, right? So if that is there for you, your rigidity will have you lose, even if your business can be pretty easy. I feel like I work hard, okay? This is my day off. I'm doing this live stream for you guys. I'm doing it for our program as well, of course, and my ambition is driving this to some extent. But I feel like I work hard. I've got all sorts of justifications for that, right? But I don't work more than like 40, 50 hours a week. I mean, compared to Elon Musk work ethic, 80, 90 plus hours a week, I'm a really lightweight. I mean, if Elon went into my position running this business, he would feel like he was on vacation, okay? So I cannot possibly expect that my business is going to be easy for me, for knowing what I think is hard, okay? I cannot believe it has to be easy. That will destroy me, because for me, hard is put in 40 to 50 hours of real work per week. Like that's hard for me. Okay, like that takes energy on my part in my life at this point in my time. Like 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. All right, when I started this business, I put a lot more hours than that in, and that was actually much easier for me than it is to do what I'm doing now for a variety of reasons. I won't get into that. But does this make sense? Like each expectation generically is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a question of how does it impact you? Like how does it play out for you in your world? So if this is going to be easy, or hey, this has got to be fun, right? For some business owners, they're going to crush it. It's going to be great. For you, you may not want to think that. You may not want to have that rule or that expectation, because it might be really tough on you. Okay, so let's move on. And actually, this second one kind of goes along with what we just said. Just any rigid rule. Anything where you're setting a rule it's so rigid, it has to be this way. This is what the expectation is. This is what I have to do. This is who I have to be. This is the way my clients have to be. I have to have these types of clients or this many, or I have to make this much money per hour, or just any of that kind of stuff. I already know you are going to get crushed eventually. It's just a matter of time before you're going to have to be more flexible than you want to be. And then that's when we turn the lights out. That's when somebody's dead on arrival. I've worked with hundreds of students that their expectations and their rules are too rigid. And I hear it literally they'll bring it up the first session we have together, the first training we have together. They're texting me, they're asking me questions. It's like it's the big question they want to get answered. Hey, how long is this going to take? How many hours do I have to put in? How much money can I make? How much can I charge? It's just like they're just the classic questions in this industry that I'll get from somebody that not all of those I just mentioned necessarily mean they're so rigid, but for many students, will bring that kind of question up. I can tell already as I start to talk to them, wow, you only want to work with people that don't know who you are, that have never met you before. They're going to pay you $300 or more a month. You're going to make $100 plus per hour, and you're not going to do any prospecting. You're going to get all your clients online, and that's the way you want to do it. And when I hear those again, doesn't mean that you can't have that plan. Great, fine. But when I hear something, can you hear the rigidity in that? Can you hear how it has to be this way? It's either you're in or you're out. You're either right, wrong. It's heaven or hell. Can you hear that rigidity? That idealism? Now, if I said, hey, look, I'd like to build all my clients online. I want to make $150 an hour. But I mean, like, I'll do whatever I got to do to get things started. Like, eventually, I'd like to get there, though. Like, that's, like, you can hear that's not that rigid. It's like, hey, oh, that's where you want to be. You're not expecting that, like, in your first client, right? So very different expectations. So sometimes, though, I'll hear a student who will bring it up the way that I just mentioned a second ago, which is very, very rigid. And I'm not even disappointed. I'm just like, I'm really already concerned. I'm like, are they going to make it? And then I noticed that they didn't show up for their second coaching session. I noticed that they're not getting any results. And I noticed that 3 months go by and they're like nowhere to be found. And I'm like, that was predictable. That failure was predictable. And I hate to feel like that. Like, I predicted they're going to fail in my first conversation with them. And I'm not saying, I mean, maybe I didn't. Maybe it was just a feeling I had. It wasn't totally conscious. But, after working with hundreds of students, it's like, you start to, like, unconsciously feel these patterns, right? And so I notice these things nowadays. And so I with your client, you don't want to ever judge. You don't want to ever say, that one's not going to make it. But I can't help but have a knee-jerk reaction sometimes in those first conversations, thinking, wow, I don't like the sound of this. And my job, literally what you're paying me for partly, is to not have that judgment, right? Not have the judgment of, you're not going to make it. So generally what I'll just say is like, look, here's what to be careful of. Those that believe this and think this and look at it this way, they don't make it. I already know they're dead on arrival. I'm not saying that's you. But I'm just hearing some things that sound like it's maybe like that, so be careful, right? And I'll leave it at that. And then it's their choice, right? They can walk into the minefield or not. But so any rigid rules, overly rigid rules at first, unless they're rules about how you need to operate and they're realistic for you, that you can control yourself and make yourself do the 5 hours of work a week or whatever you got to do, fine. But if it's overly rigid as far as what you can expect from other people, this is usually the way it goes. Usually the way it is that we're overly generous about what we're going to expect back from everyone else in the world, and we're overly stingy about what we expect from ourselves that we're going to give out. Usually, your expectations of what you're going to do and what it's going to take from you and what you're going to, like how you're going to handle things to make things happen are way less than what's actually required. That's the truth. How's that for rigid expectations? So if you want to really jack up your expectations to higher expectations, jack up your expectations of yourself in a realistic way. Like, build it up over time. We'll get to that in a second. And then lower your expectations of what you're going to expect from other people. Okay? Good. I'm glad, Sylvia. So, rigid rules. Rigid expectations about what the world is going to do for you, rather than what you're going to step up and do and bring to the table, okay, over time, so that ultimately then your gifts start to come back to you, right? I have a kind of a mantra I use at the beginning of a coaching set or before I start coaching for the day. And I'll say, my leadership, I plant these seeds and I send it out into the universe again and again and again and again and again. And eventually it comes back to me in all these myriad different ways. I don't know how it's going to come back to me. I don't know when it's going to come back to me, but I know it's going to come back eventually. But I don't expect it today. One of my original mentors and business partners, Eric Lawfome, he always liked to say, and this is one of my favorite sayings around like basic sales principles and business principles, even 20 years after I learned it from him, he says, hey, look, if you're out there trying to make money, you're out there trying to get a customer, you're out there trying to promote, trying to enroll somebody in your coaching programs, whatever, you may not always get paid today from doing that work. And you know what? You may not always even get paid tomorrow from doing that work, but you always get paid. Do you get how flexible that is? I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't predict the timeline for me or for you, but I'm going to get there. Very different, more rigid for the long term than it is for the short term, right? Short term rigid expectations and rules, that's where it scares me. That's where I'm worried about you. I don't know if you're going to make it. We got to handle that. We got to get that taken care of. All right, let's move on. Other expectations and beliefs to avoid. Other self-fulfilling prophecies that will predict failure, not success. Judgments. Judgments of yourself. Are you judging yourself for not getting the client yet, or having that person say no to you, or running a session that didn't really go anywhere and confused you? Are you judging yourself? Are you judging? Are you is a self-indictment of you that there's something wrong with you, you're not good enough, you're not going to make it, you're an idiot, you're a crappy coach, you'll never, that kind of stuff. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go as well, but just judging yourself. You got to be careful of self-judgment. When you notice that you're judging yourself, just make sure you understand that's just a judgment. That ain't true. You can't prove it in a court of law. You can't say, hey, I went to 20 people, I asked them to run a free session, they all said no, that means I suck. You will never prove that in a court of law that you suck. Counselor, this is circumstantial evidence. Sorry, we're throwing this case out. You lose. Okay? Your judgments of yourself are not provable generally in a court of law. All right. Now you could prove 20 people said no to you. You could prove you went and asked them to run a session with you. You could prove you did X, Y, and Z. You could probably prove that stuff. You could have witnesses of that. It doesn't prove you suck. It doesn't prove that you're never going to make it. It doesn't prove you should quit. It doesn't prove any of that. Sorry. You don't get to believe that unless you're just willing to go into fantasy land and create a self-fulfilling loser prophecy, right? So judgments of yourself. Judgments of others also is included in this. Are you busy judging the people around you that they're not good enough for coaching, or they don't understand coaching enough for you to be able to enroll them in it or set them up for a session? Are you judging that they don't have the time or the money? Are you judging that they look down on you? Are you judging the world in ways that, again, are not provable in a court of law, are potentially maybe kind of unfair as well? Are you judging them in that way? I remember it was just triggered to think about it. Speaking of rigidity, there was a client of ours once that came, and I had a couple that are like this, but one in particular I'm thinking about. She came to us and she said, I have a lot of friends. I have a business where I have tons of customers. I'm a leader in my community, but I'm not going to coach anyone that I know already. No family, no friends, no business associates, no people that are already in my community. I will only coach people that have no clue who I am, because I don't want to mess with the other areas of my life, my business. I already got good things going. I don't want to lose that. I want that preserved, right? So just imagine the judgment. Just imagine how judgmental you got to be in order to play your business that way. You first of all have to judge yourself that you can't work through the complexity of your already existing business and personal relationships. You don't have what it takes to mitigate those things, or you're too lazy to handle it. You're too lazy to do it. Just think of the judgments, the judgment you have to pass on all those people around you. You have to, first of all, you're robbing them of all the difference you could make for them. You don't want to contribute to the people you care about the most. You don't want to contribute to the people that you already have relationships with. You don't want to help them. Just other people you don't know that you're completely, have no relationship to. Okay, that seems, I doubt that's the reason why this gal brought it up. But just imagine the judgment that you must have of other people to have to create that rigidity, that rule. You have to judge your family that they're going to all be against this, or they're going to be so closed to sharing things with you and so closed to you helping them, or so wanting to keep themselves private from you. They're so scared of that. You have to have all these made up value judgments or indictments of these other people in your life, your family specifically, let's say, or your friends, or your business associates. You got to think that all your clients, all the people that are already customers of yours, are so that they're so unable to separate one business relationship from another, that they couldn't possibly not just quit working with you altogether if you had a coaching session with them. They're so scared of sharing what's going on with them that they're so worried about that. Now, maybe it's you that's really worried about that stuff and you're just projecting onto other people. I don't know. But you really have to be uber judgmental of everyone else around you to have that kind of expectation, that kind of belief, that kind of rigidity around your business, right? That rigidity didn't just come from like just having a good idea about how to build the next business. I mean, if you had phenomenal success that you built up over 20 years, why wouldn't you leverage that to some extent? I'm not saying you can't be smart strategically. Like if you got some special strategy, great, go for it. But that's not what this was coming from. And this client was gone. I mean, they were dead after a couple months. You know, because look, it wasn't that they didn't have a good strategy. Their strategy was probably fine, but they weren't really committed to building their business. They were really committed to their judgment. They put their judgment above everything else. So judging other people, got to be careful of that. Got to avoid that, especially when it comes to building your business. And then finally, judging of not just your progress in your business and the business model and all that kind of stuff. As you can imagine, we could judge this like, hey, maybe this business just doesn't work, right? You could judge that totally. It's not McDonald's. It may or may not be perfect, right? You don't have a cookie cutter for how exactly you'll build this business. It's very personal. But in addition to that, also, what about judging your coach, the program you're in, the people that are supporting you as well? Well, that QUICKSTART Coaching Code Bootcamp, these people are horrible. They're full of it. They don't know what they're talking about. Jeff, threw me for a loop. He misled me. I mean, there's all that kind of judgment that you could possibly pass. By the way, does that mean that I've got everything right? Does that mean that we're the perfect coaches for you? Does that mean we have all the answers? Does that mean the boot camp's going to work better than any other program you could ever do? I don't know. I can't predict that. I think it will. That's why I've got you here, right? But I can't predict that. I can't say for sure. But those kind of judgments are just going to keep you from the value that you could get from the process as well. And I'm not always right. Like I said when we talked about overusing your coach. Like, I don't know what's right. I don't have the perfect answer. Don't demean our coaching relationship by expecting that, number one, but also don't judge it just even before you try on the shirt, try on the jacket, try on the coaching, try on the strategy, try on the accountability, try on the assignments, try on what I'm offering you first. I remember this happens a couple times. We've had a couple students come into QUICKSTART specifically, and they will bolt out of the program. They'll say very quickly, like within a week or so, and they'll say, you know what, I heard all this stuff before. This is just Tony Robbins. You don't have anything different than that. It's nothing new, nothing special. I'm out of here, right? Now, I've got a lot of issues with that. I'm not going to get into that, but just notice the judgment that they passed that kept them from everything they could have gotten in our coaching relationship. I mean, they were thinking just because they heard that before that it wasn't actually going to help them this time. Like, they're the ones that needed to get started in their business, and I'm teaching them the things that actually made it so I could get started, and thousands of other students of ours got started from these principles, and they're saying, I heard it before, I'm out, right? Like, they just needed something new, right? You can imagine the rigid judgment that they passed there. The fact is, yes, they probably did hear it before in some way, maybe not exactly the way that I shared it, but they certainly didn't apply it to this area of their life. They certainly didn't apply it to their business. They certainly didn't apply it to their coaching. They probably didn't apply it to themselves. They're just like, yeah, I know that. I already heard that. That's done. Like, literally, people do think, and check in to see if this fits for you. I know it shows up for me quite a bit. They think that if they learn something logically, they think that if they've heard it from someone, that distinction is actually paying off as much as it possibly can for them in their life. They think it's done. Oh yeah, I heard that. Well then, I don't need to hear that again. I don't need to use that now because I actually heard somebody say it once. It's making as much of a difference for me in my business and my life as it possibly can. Like, we actually think that because we heard it in our ear that we're using it in our life, that we really are living from that. Literally, we have distinctions just in this one live stream that I'm doing like 30 of these over the next 30 days, where it would literally change your entire life, your entire business, if you lived your life from that, if you ran your business from that. And then you're going to say, no, heard it before, no, it won't make a difference, already applied it, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and that's not going to make a difference for me. Like, that's the self-fulfilling prophecy that we get sometimes, is that sense that it's like this expectation that, no, doesn't work for me, or great stuff, but it's not going to work in this part of my business. It's not going to work in this part of my life. It's not going to make a difference for me here. And you're going to withhold and skate on the surface of the pettiness of small wins because your belief is, or your judgment is, nope, doesn't work here. I'm saying this stuff could work in any area of your life. It could definitely work for your coaching business, for sure. I know that because you've proven it over and over again. And you're going to say, nope, won't work for me, won't work in this context, won't work for this market, won't work in this part of my life. And you will not put that stuff on the mat in here because here I am saying this will work anywhere for you, for anyone, anytime, with any market. And you're going to say, nope, not this one, not this part, not for me, not for that. That is a judgment of the program, if you will. It's a judgment of what I've shared with you. And you will not even try it on that it could actually make a difference because you don't want to go there. You don't want to put your real life at stake. You don't want to put your real business on the mat. You don't want to put your real destiny and your real life purpose at stake in this program. You're going to skate through the next 28 days safe and secure and missing out on any real transformation for you just by that one simple judgment of the program. And in a way, it's kind of a judgment of you or your situation as well, probably, but it's like projected onto the program though, like this program won't work for me, won't work for this situation, won't work for these clients, etc. Doesn't make a difference in there. And then you will sell out on yourself, and then I get to be like the guy that takes the blame for it, or the program gets to take the blame. Just be careful of that. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to take the blame, but I don't lose from it. You end up losing from it. It's your destiny that is on the mat here, not mine. My destiny, I've achieved it. Now I want more, like I want it all, right? I mean, like I'm still wanting to climb the next mountain, right? But I've made it to the mountain peaks that I care about in my life. And if I never coached another soul in my life again, never made a dime from coaching again, I would be satisfied. And I'm kind of never satisfied. So, but I could be satisfied with that. So now this is for you. Like this is like, let's get a handle for your business and what you want. All right, so we covered judgments of yourself, judgments of others, judgments of the program, judgments of how it works for you and how it doesn't. And then any other really high or really low expectations that are like really just exaggerated in one direction or another, be very careful of those. Thinking it's all going to be perfect, thinking it's all going to be horrible. Like either one could set you up to play things out in a certain way, like get really disappointed really fast, or like not even try. Like there's all sorts of things that can happen from the get-go with those kind of really extreme expectations. And then finally just, and this isn't necessarily a specific belief, but just always like looking for what's wrong, looking for what's not working, looking for what's bad. It's good to notice what you need to improve. It's good to notice what you got to fix. Like that's fine. But there's a certain listening, there's a certain way that we try to extract the negativity from something, extract the reason why it's not working, extract what's wrong with something, or what's bad about something, or what doesn't fit about something. Sometimes for some people, that will destroy the possibility that is still truly there and available to you in that coaching session, that conversation, in this program for you, etc. Looking for what's wrong, right? So, okay, fine, you found something wrong. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, I don't know. But then there's a point where you just got to move on and say, okay, now what's next? What am I going to do about it? What am I going to do to handle this, right? And take responsibility and get it handled. Like that's what I'm asking for you, just for 28 days. And then you can take all your complaints and all your pettiness and, you know, all of your holding back and all your, you know, way of protecting yourself. You can take all that back at that point. And take it all back if it works for you, right? But I think what you're going to find is that if you go ahead and are allowing yourself to extract that from you and suffocate that part of yourself, so to speak, or at least notice it and get past it for like the next 30-ish days, then your life will be changed for the better. I guarantee that. That's the only thing, well, how do I put this? That is my guarantee for you. I can't guarantee what you're going to do. I can guarantee I'm going to show up and play full out. I can't guarantee what you're going to do, but I guarantee if you actually get rid of these kind of issues, these negative self-fulfilling prophecies for the next 30 days, and you give them no quarter. I mean, I'm not saying they won't come up at all, but when they come up, you just smash them, right? You get with a coach, you get with me, you bring it up, you text me, say, hey, this is what I'm thinking this won't work for me because you said this and that's not me, I'm done with all that. I'm ripping it to shreds, and I'll maybe take it back after the next 28 days. Fine, that's totally fine. If you handle it like that, or just get rid of it completely for the next 30 days, I guarantee your life will be changed for the better as well. I guarantee you'll get your coaching business started. I guarantee that too. But I can't guarantee it if you don't show up. I can't guarantee it if you let yourself pollute your way of thinking about this stuff and ultimately destroy your action, your behavior, your attitude with others in creating a self-fulfilling prophecy to produce and manifest results. Part of the way you manifest results in here is taking action, no doubt. We talked about this in the last couple days. But part of the way you do it also is through your attitude about it, because people can smell that. They can hear it in your voice. They can see it in your face. They know what you think without you even telling them what you think. So if you're kind of holding on to these kind of negativity things, you're holding on to these expectations, beliefs, rigidity, judgments, etc., they're going to feel that from you. Like, if you haven't noticed, coaches, we're maybe a little bit more sensitive than the average Joe, but people can kind of smell, they feel, they notice, they have a sixth sense more than any time ever again nowadays, more than any other time in our history, when somebody's just a little off, when there's something going on, they got a chip on their shoulder, or they're not quite confident about what they're saying. By the way, we're especially sensitive about this when it comes to our leaders. So as a coach, you're supposed to be stepping up to be a leader for others. They're going to judge you like one. They're already going to, you say you're a coach for them, you say you're going to set a session with them. Now they're going to think, okay, this person wants to be a leader for me. I better look really close. I better have my sixth sense up to notice if they're full of it. And sometimes, by the way, people are overly sensitive about this. They hear and feel and see things that aren't even there, right? And they're not even fair about it. Some people will treat you that way, okay? But also, they're going to be really sensitive, and if some of those things are underlying for you, like it's there, like that lack of confidence or that negativity or that chip on your shoulder, that I'm just doing this to prove I can't really do it so I can get out of actually having to do the work, they're going to feel that, and you're going to be like, oh no, I don't want you to be a leader for me. I gotta run. Sorry, can't make it to the session, right? And they won't even know necessarily why. They won't even be conscious of it necessarily. Not everybody's conscious of this stuff, but that will be the result. And you'll say, Jeff, I took all the action. I spent hours and hours and hours. Nobody wants to do a session with me. I wonder why, right? It's because they smelled something in you that you let stay in you during this 30 days, or you let it be there during your conversation, and it just kind of came across, right? Don't let that happen for you. Get it handled. If you got to watch this video, this live stream every day for the next 30 days to remind you of the responsibility that you got to take in here to really be powerful and make this happen, then do it. It's worthwhile. Time well spent. And sometimes people don't even have these issues, and if that's the case, lovely. That's great. All right, so those are all the expectations and the beliefs to avoid, and there's many more that I can't possibly cover in this short time. But hopefully that gives you the ilk of what kind of things we're working on and talking about and looking for. And if these things come up for you, and they still kind of are hanging out, and you're letting them hang out, bring them up in coaching sessions. Bring them up with your coaches. Bring them up in your masterminds. Bring them up with me. We want to flush this stuff to the surface so we can wash it away, or at least shine light on it. So it's the good disinfectant, the sunlight kind of thing. So the issue we find is, like, people are like, yeah, everything's fine. I'm good. I don't need any help. I don't want any coaching. We talked about that when we talked about underusing your coach, and they just use that as a way to hide what's really going on, that they'd be a little embarrassed about or wouldn't feel good and that kind of stuff. So look, nobody's going to judge you in here, okay? Or think of it this way. People are going to judge you anyway. You might as well bring up the crap and bring it to the surface and get it handled. Because at least then When somebody judges you, they'll see that you're actually handling it, turning it around. By the way, sometimes the fear of judgment that makes us not want to bring that stuff up, once we bring it up, that very same fear drives us to get our shit handled, right? It drives us to break through our limitations and take care of business because we're like, I don't like the way this looks, and I just explained it to everybody. I better turn that around. And all of a sudden, then we're more responsible because our peer group is watching us, right? That's one way to use peer pressure for the positive. If your pure fear, though, keeps you from even bringing it up and turning things around, now, that's, again, it's DOA for transformation for you. All right, so take advantage of your coaches by bringing this stuff up, make it public, don't let yourself sit with it and let it stew. And now, let's talk about what to do. What are the strategies or the expectations, the beliefs that you can take on in this 30 days that will really make a gigantic difference? First one, have a no expectations attitude. This is one of the most powerful expectations to take on is none. Zero expectations. I took this on. I learned this from the president of Coach University, Sandy Vilas, at the time, like 19 years ago, 20 years ago, something like that. And he said, I always approach my sessions with a no expectations attitude. And I do as well. And it has just really changed things. Like, I don't have to be like all fake positive then walking into something thinking everything's going to be lovely. I can just walk in neutral and I'm ready for anything. And I can make it positive. And I'm not always going to make it positive. I mean, I can't always turn everything around, but I have everything available to me. There's no disappointment with no expectations. And there's also no stress. If I have no expectations, I can go walk in with zero stress because it's like, hey, I didn't expect anything in the first place. What is there to worry about? Worst thing that can happen, and I didn't expect any different, right? So zero expectations is one of the best ways you can manage your expectations. There's also no surprises. You never surprise if you don't expect anything. Because anything comes, well, let's put it this way. You maybe are pleasantly surprised when something wonderful happens. Something bad happens, you're like, I didn't expect any better than that anyway. Or any worse, right? So that neutrality gives you tremendous power in a session. I see a lot of coaches walking into sessions trying to be uber positive. And then it takes their power away, actually. You think positivity is power. Sometimes, not always. Or they walk in really negative and extra critical, right? Those are expectations that they're carrying on their backs into a session or into prospecting or into their business. Something to be careful of, something to watch for. Next, this is another kind of expectation to take on or a belief to take on. You want to set high standards for yourself. Have high standards for you, not for other people necessarily, not for the way your business is going to go, not for how the program is going to be perfect for you, but just set some high expectations for yourself. Like, this is the work I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to deliver day to day, action-wise, not result-wise. Don't have high expectations like, I'm going to get 20 clients. No, have high expectations like, I'm going to make 20 phone calls. I'm going to work on setting a free session today for 20 hours, right? Those are high expectations of yourself, not high expectations about how wonderful it's going to be. You can have those expectations later once you know that you truly can predict certain levels of success. So high standards. Have high standards for yourself, not for everything else in the world. Looking for the gold. We just talked about a second ago how a lot of people will look for what's negative or what's not working, and they'll try to extract negativity from a situation that's truly neutral. Look for what's positive too. Look for what you can learn from a situation. Look at what worked. Look at what you did well. Look at what you liked about what happened in a session or what happened in your business development process that you're doing. Look at what's great and try to build on that. You can only build on success. Next. Actually, let's backpedal for a second. When you look at for what's great, when you look for the gold, you'll tend to find it. Right? We get whatever we search for, whatever we focus on in life or in our business. So if you look for this good stuff, you will actually find more of it as you look for more of it as well. And then you can do more of that as well and use it even more. Okay, now we can move on. We talked about having expectations yourself a second ago. This is what I'd advise. This is my coaching for you on this. Rather than expecting a lot from you, build yourself over time. So if you know that you're kind of a lightweight when it comes to putting the work in, don't expect a lot of work from you up front, but expect to build that work ethic. If you really are lousy around people and you are kind of shy and you don't have a great conversational ability or ethic or capability or charisma to attract those conversations, Don't expect it initially, but work on building that. Does that make sense? So, as opposed to thinking you're pre-built, like you should be like factory settings perfect, you start with some raw material that some of which is great, some of which is not. And whatever's not great, you got to build the greatness in over time. I remember Tony Robbins recently, like last couple of years, he's been talking about, like, people are always asking, how did you become Tony Robbins? And he said, I don't, sure, he's using all sorts of expletives, but he said something like, I built this motherfucker, like that. I built this Tony Robbins guy. I mean, that's not even his name. He made up his name, okay? I mean, his first name's Tony, but his last name is like Mohorovich, okay? So he stole Robbins from, I can't remember, John Robbins, I think, the guy that founded Baskin Robbins. So anyway, long story short, he built himself. That was not him, right? So I'm saying to you, you're not the perfect version of you yet. You got to deliver more to become that individual. You'll never necessarily be perfect, but you can build in better and better and better every day. So build yourself over time. Build who you are rather than expecting that your pre-built factory settings perfect. Not going to happen. All right, so that's what to do. Here's a couple just from my life that really worked for me in the beginning of my coaching business. I decided early on that I was going to figure this out. I said, okay, I don't know what I'm doing yet. I'm a lightweight when it comes to sales and marketing and business. I don't know any of that stuff. But, I'll figure it out. That was an expectation I had of myself. But you can hear how flexible that is. That's not that rigid, right? It's fairly straightforward. It's like, okay, just take it step by step and build up. Build one step upon the next, right? Next, this was a really helpful one for me. My belief was walking in, this made such a difference. Hey, if somebody else can do this, then I can do it. I have the same brain. I don't have, like, I'm not missing an arm. I haven't had a lobotomy yet. I haven't killed all my brain cells with drugs yet. So if somebody else can do it, they have the same equipment that I have, 2 arms, 2 legs, a brain, a nervous system, etc. This isn't rocket science. Somebody else can do it. I can do it, right? If others can do it, so can I. And I use that belief over and over and over again as a reference point. It's one of the areas that we talked about earlier this week in one of the other live streams that, little kids will use this as a way to get themselves to do something that it takes a lot of bravery and courage. They'll see the other kids are doing it, so they just assume that they should be doing it, right? They don't realize it's kind of hard to figure out how to balance on a bike, or it's kind of scary to go down that slide the first time because who knows what's at the bottom of the slide, right? But they see like 30 kids doing it and they're like, I have to do that. And they're doing it now, right? They just figure if others can do it, then so can I. Or some of them don't even know that they can do it. They don't have that certainty. They just think, hey, if others are doing it, I have to do it. I got to go a lot. I got to get with my friends, right? So you can take advantage of that kind of peer or model approach to utilize other people to say, hey, if they can do it, I can learn what they're doing and follow their same lead. And eventually I'll produce similar results, if not the same results. Next expectation I had was I can persist. I didn't believe I could succeed initially necessarily. I didn't believe I was going to get the client the next day, the next day, the next day. But I did believe that I knew how not to quit, because all you got to do is continue the journey. Not necessarily do it exactly the same way, but move to the next step, figure out what you're doing, and do something that's even better. I just believed I have persistence. I've been able to persist in the past on things. I can persist on this as well. So think about for yourself, what are areas where you persisted, and use that as a reference for knowing that you can persist on this thing too, and apply those same skill sets. My guess is you've been persistent in at least one area of your life at one time in your life. Great. You can do it in that area. You can do it in any area. You do it in this area. You probably need it. It takes some persistence to get through 28 days of day in, day out focus. It just does, right? So you want to believe that you can persist, not like, oh, I'll do this for a couple of days, see how it goes. That's not going to be a good way to handle it. So self-fulfilling prophecy, I can persist. That will predict some success. last one I'll share with you, and then we'll get out of here. This one actually wasn't from me. This was from one of our students that started from scratch. They started the coaching business from scratch with us. They had a full-time job. They eventually transitioned out of their job. They went part-time, and then they left completely. This guy is one of the more successful coaches in the UK. He has been making 6 figures now for several years running. I still work with him to this day. We actually did a case study on him. His name's Thomas. And Thomas, the first time we got together, he signed up for Master Coach University, and he said, Jeff, I just wanted to let you know, and he said this very confidently, I'm going to be one of the best students you've ever had. My goal, he would say, is to be the best student you've ever had. He didn't even expect that he was going to be the best student. He just said that was his goal. I mean, you could make your comparisons, like, is he the better student than Hal Elrod was, or whatever. I mean, we've gotten some stars that got their start in their coaching business with us. I don't know, right? That's not the point, right? I mean, like, you look at I don't know, like a Billy Joel or somebody like a Michael Jordan. They all wanted to be the best. Like, their goal was to be the best that the world has ever seen in that area. But none of them necessarily judged or expected that they were going to be. It was just like an aspiration that they played full out for. They were like, I'm going to really try to be the best. And I think that's where Thomas was coming from when he shared this. I don't think he thought, I'm going to be the best ever, right? I think he thought, I'm going to push myself to be the best ever. That's going to be my intention, to be that. And whether I am or not, I'm going to have to judge myself one way or the other. I'm just going to step up as if that's what's going to happen, right? I'm going to play full out. I'm going to play to win rather than play to lose, right? So self-fulfilling prophecy that predicts success. I'm going to be the best student you've ever had, or I'm going to really do my best to be the best student you've ever had. Self-fulfilling prophecy to predict success. I can persist through this process. I can persist past today, past the first, second, and third failure. Self-fulfilling prophecy to predict success. If others can do it, then so can I. Self-fulfilling prophecy to predict success. I am going to figure this out. Now, you take those, and then you flush out the nasty ones that we talked about earlier in this video. If you haven't seen it, watch the replay. And you flush them out, you bring them up with me, bring them up with your coaches, give them no quarter, shed light on them, and get embarrassed if you got to get embarrassed, but just deal with it, get it handled, and let us support you in transforming it. Put it on the mat, put your life on the mat, put your business on the mat. Just for 28 days in this process, you will start. That's the promise. The only promise I give you in QUICKSTART is you're going to start this business. And then besides that, your life will be changed for the better. Your life will transform for the better. I guarantee that if you put your life on the mat in here, but you got to put it on the mat. That means you got to believe you're already somebody that can do that. That means that you've got to have high expectations of yourself, not necessarily of others in the world. That means that you've got to play full out and show up and actually have the conversations that are tough conversations. And I understand that takes courage. I totally get that. But you got to do it. If you do that, the rest, okay, I'll make a deal with you. Here's the deal. You handle with me, you bring up with me anything that's standing in your way in your business in the next 30 days, in our sessions together, in your masterminds with your coaches. Bring that stuff up, play full out, and handle your expectations the way we talked about today. And follow our coaching, really try it on like we talked about earlier this week. I'll take care of the rest. I'll handle the rest for you. All you got to do is do the work and get anything that's standing in your way, bring it up in coaching sessions, and we'll rip that stuff to shreds. I can promise you that. That stuff will not stand in the way of really good coaching conversations that you and I will have. That's all. But you got to bring that up. Coaches need players. You got to play. You play, I'll take care of the rest. You take care of taking action, following the coaching, and bringing things up that aren't working as they come up for you, like the real stuff, the internal stuff that's getting in your way especially, but also external strategic issues as well. And I'll do the rest for you. All right. If you missed parts of this, check it out on the replay. Like, this is the gold. We're going to cover some of this in different ways during preparation week, but I really wanted you prepared for day one to hit the ground running and start your business immediately. Like, here's what I'd like to see for some of you if you're really ready for it. Like, it's a 30-day boot camp, but what about like making it like a 7-day? Like, I don't mean quit after 7 days. I mean, make the first 7 days like you expect to get started in the 7 days, not 30. Like, why do we need to string it out when all you got to do is start making your calls, start setting free sessions, and start asking people to enroll in coaching? As long as you're doing those 3 things, I think you're in business. And it may not be a successful business, but it's a business. And then you got the rest of the 30 days, get paying clients, and then, hey, now you're successful. That's even better, right? That's a bonus. So let's rip the Band-Aid off fast. If that works for you, if you want to take a more methodical approach, that's totally okay. The deal in the boot camp is that you can participate as much or as little as you want. This is an open door policy. There's no, like, you don't have to do anything in here. This is just my encouragement for you if you really want the promise delivered for you in the boot camp. So I'll see you on the next live stream. I'll see you in our coaching session that's happening whenever it's happening. Jean Marie will tell you, course supervisor will tell you, and take care until then. See ya.